Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast. In this week's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Sam Wright. Myself and Sam, we run the, completely forgot the name, but the Fourth Tier Talk.
Fourth Tier Talk.
There we go. Yeah, just about remembered it. Which you can check out all on Sam's Twitter through the anchor and everything like that. But first of all, Sam, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to join.
It's a pleasure to have you. And in this week's episode, we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to be discussing the National League, basically just ranking each team season out of 10, talk about players who've done particularly well for them. And we're going to do a little brief bit at the end about the teams going down from League Two, so Southend United and Grimsby Town, and our thoughts on what could happen next season, I guess, although it's pretty unclear right now because obviously there's not been any team promoted as of yet or even relegated from the National League. But I believe they play, I want to say 40 games this season because only 22 teams involved. I could be wrong about that, it might be 42. But nevertheless, there's not too long left of the National League season. I think there's only a couple of weeks left. But we'll get straight into it, and we're going to start off with Bromley, a bit of a random one. I think it's fair to say they've had a good season so far, sitting in 7th position.
Yeah, very good. Fair play, Bromley. I mean, not really a team you'd put up there. I mean, with all due respect, in terms of maybe club stature, not really a team you'd put up there, but they've done very well this season, and of course picked up a very impressive 1-0 win against Hartlepool on the 3rd of May as well. Hartlepool are another team up there as well. No, Bromley have done very well this season. If I were to give them a grade, I think you've got to go, depends how their season ends, really, but right now you're probably going to go for about an A-, I'd probably say, really, to see they're up there and competing with the teams. But and they also have a big game on Saturday, Torquay away. So both teams will really be eager to win that one. But no, if Bromley can keep in them playoff positions, then who knows what's going to happen. But they've had a good season, no doubt about that. Yeah,
I think you've got to give full credit to them, because even though they have sacked the manager halfway through the season and Neil Smith's left, Andy Woodman, since he's come in, has done a fantastic job there, but even with the likes of Eastleigh, Chesterfield and Notts County right behind them, they're managing to withstand the pressure. They're doing quite well recently. And I think to say that they're playing on the 3G pitch every week and when at home as well, going to play those grass pitches, it could be quite a change. Yeah, they still managed to execute that sort of pass it around, tick-a-tack of football that they've done so well this season. So I'd probably have to agree with you saying that A- to be fair for Bromley, because they've had a great season. Depends if they can push into the playoffs now. But I think even if they did get the playoffs and then don't end up getting promoted, it'd still be a fantastic season. But talking of a team, well, not talking of a team, but a team who perhaps haven't had a season like they would have hoped compared to previous years. Solihull Moors currently sitting down in 14th position. A few seasons in a row now, they've sort of been pushing towards playoffs. I think as recent as 2 years ago, they finished 3rd in league, I want to say. But nevertheless, they've had a great few years under the likes of Jimmy Shan, Mark Yates. I believe he's even the current manager right now, but they've had a good few years of Solihull Moors. So a bit of a step back and a bit of a disappointing season for them, sitting in 14th, not really playing for anything right now. Sam, what are your thoughts on them?
Well, 6 draws all season. You know, they've really balanced out their win-loss. 14 wins, 16 defeats, I think it is. So that kind of sums it up, really. They're not a team who draws games. They very much go for it at the end, and it works one way or another. Their season as a whole, disappointing. 14th in the table. Can't really say that's great for their recent standards. But yeah, I mean, they'll be disappointed, and for them, the aim's got to be next season. Now, one thing I've noticed about the National League this year, it's been very open, because I think that obviously the pandemic, of course, has kind of, these teams might not have known if they were going to be playing or not, etc. They wouldn't have known if the season was going to be stopped, which was heavily rumoured at one point. So it's all played a part, really, and so many games have been postponed. It's been so hard. You know, teams have had games in hand, but they haven't, you're not guaranteed to win them games. And I think Solihull, I don't want to make excuses for them, but I think they've kind of been a little bit of a victim of that at times this season that I've noticed. But yeah, no, overall, though, 14th's not been a great season. I'm probably going to have to go with a C. Probably been a bit generous, that, but a C is probably the fair one, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think if you look at their squad as well, they've got some really talented players in there. The likes of Cameron Cox at the back, Jordan Cranston was just playing at Morecambe last season. Even up top as well, with the likes of Adam Rooney, played for Aberdeen and Salford as recent as a few years ago now. But for them, I'm going to go a bit harsh on Sam. I'm going to have to go for a D, because it's just been a really underwhelming season. Time for them to properly rebuild under Mark Yates, and hopefully Solihull can be pushing back in the right direction come next season. But another team whose season hasn't gone great to plan, and Sam, I think you said before, you have an idea about them. But Barnet currently sitting technically bottom of the division. Obviously, Dover Athletic and Macclesfield did pull out. But Barnet, not gone to plan for them either.
It's got to be an F, unfortunately. It's been a terrible season for Barnet. 6 wins all season, 24 losses out of 36, well over half their game. 3/4 of their games, that is, near enough. It's a third, I should say. That's really sums it up, Rick, to be honest with you. Very poor season for Barnet. They're looking, there's no relegation. I mean, I don't want to criticise them. It's not their fault there's no relegation. Don't get me wrong. It's like I'm not blaming them. But I think Barnet fans themselves even know they're extremely lucky there's no relegation this season. But it's been a season to forget. A lot of owners' troubles as well. Barnet are a good club. They've been in the Football League quite recently. You know, they've had a good little history behind them. It's a shame to see them like this, but like I say, I mean, I really fear for them next season right now, though I think National League South could very much be coming their way unless things improve off the field, which I don't know they're going to right now, but this club's not going for a good time.
Yeah, and you mentioned all the problems off the field as well. And I think, to be honest, that's everything that's influencing their current position. They've got some absolutely fantastic players in there. Ben Nugent, Richard Everton, Matt Preston, Dean Parrott, even Anthony Wordsworth, who was playing League One, wanted by a few championship clubs, I want to say 3 years ago now. They've got a very good squad of Barnet, and so I was surprised to see how poorly they've done this season. You know, they've got some of the best facilities in the National League. Sam Ambassador, decent enough head coaching to have. But with that being said, yeah, like you said, I'm going to have to give them an F because this season's just been absolutely dire for a squad which, let's be honest, should not be in that position in the table. But making things more positive then and a bit closer to where we look at, I guess. Halifax Town currently sat in 5th position in the National League. I think it's fair to say they've had a pretty decent season themselves. You know, they've had mid-table aspirations at the start of the season, possibly sort of just outside the playoffs, but actually breaking into playoffs and being there relatively comfortable. I'm pretty sure that Halifax fans will be delighted with that.
Yeah, I'm going to probably say an A- as well. Good season for them. Good structure about Halifax. Been very impressed. I mean, again, 18 wins, 8 draws, 12 defeats. Another team who you can say maybe like going for it a little bit more as well. But yeah, fair play to them. Very good season. And, you know, they can get League Two football next season. What an achievement that would be. But I think they've had a very impressive season, Halifax. Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me if Halifax going into the playoffs did do well enough to actually get promoted. To me, some of the results they've had recently, beating Yeovil 3-0, defeating a very competitive Chesterfield side, defeating Kings Lynn 4-2. They're in very decent form at Halifax. So I'd probably go for a solid B+ for them. You know, you can say they've had a good season for the club that they are. But at the end of the day, Halifax is a bit of an underdog. Maybe with Pete Wild in charge, they should be pushing them a little bit more because obviously he's such a fantastic manager. But fair play to them and a B+. But moving on to another club involved in the playoff race, got to go to Hartlepool United, obviously have aspiration of the title, just 6 points off now. For Hartlepool, again, it's similar to Halifax. They've not finished, I believe it's in the top 10 for the past, I think it's 5-6 years, something like now. It's a crazy record. Just to see them in this position, it's really good to see.
Yeah, I had a feeling at the start of the season these would be the underdogs, though, Hartlepool, really. Maybe not the underdogs, but maybe a team who were going to do well. I don't know, I had that feeling at the start of the season, really, looking at them, that they looked quite good to watch. So, yeah, I mean, they've done very well. I mean, grading their season, you've probably got to go for, I'd say, a B+. I'd probably say being generous. I mean, again, because my expectation was quite high, which, you know, might be a little bit misleading, like you say, with their recent record. But I don't know, really. This is kind of what I expected. And they're my pick to win the playoffs as well, Hartlepool. If I'm picking one team, I'm probably going to go for them. So it'd be great to see them back in League Two. And yeah, I mean, I think they've had a pretty good season.
Yeah, I think Hartlepool are one team who benefited off the National League North and South's cancellations, as harsh as that sounds. Bringing the likes of Danny Elliott up top, even, I've completely forgotten his name, Jamie Sterry from South Shields. They've made some really good signings, to be fair to them. And I think even Dave Challinor as manager in recent years with AFC Fylde, he's done a fantastic job there. It's just a shame what's happened to them, but hopefully now he can take that extra step. He might have lost in the playoff final with Fylde. Hopefully he can take that extra step now with Hartlepool and get them promoted. I'm going to go for an A, if I'm being honest. I think they've had one of the best seasons in the National League, not just for their league position, but just everything going on at the club right now. It's just a really good place to be. But moving away from Hartlepool then and moving down to 13th place with Boreham Wood, a team who in recent years have reached as high as the playoff final, where they did unfortunately lose to Salford City. Even have one of the most prolific strikers in the league, who's been linked with Football League clubs in the form of Kabongo Shimanga. But nevertheless, again, not a great season for a team who have been in good form, well, not good form, but had a good few years.
Well, I do want to say Kabongo Shimanga is a very talented player, to be fair to him, and I think Boreham would be very lucky to hold on to him next season. Yeah. Overall, it's been a pretty underwhelming season, really. I'd say Boreham Wood, they're not where I expected, but maybe I thought they'd finish like 9th or 10th. So I think that they're a little bit below that, I'd say. A bit underwhelming, yeah, that's for sure. I'd probably going to go with a C, if I'm being honest. It's been nothing to shout about. And yeah, I think they'll be quite disappointed with where they are overall with the last few seasons, how well they did, especially that one year. I'd just say getting to the playoff final against Salford, was that 3 years ago now? 2 years ago, sorry, just 2 years ago. So, they have fallen a little bit. So they'll be hoping for a better season next season.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, if Boreham Wood did that, Manga, they'd be in such a worse position. When you look at, he's the top scorer at the club with 17 goals. Closest to come to him at Boreham Wood is Gus Mafuta, who's only got 6 goals. He's a midfielder. It just shows how much this side of 30 players are relying on their top scorer. And I think if he does leave come the summer, there could be in a bit of trouble. So I'm going to go for a D. I think Boreham Wood are a club who should be performing to a higher expectation. But a club in a similar sort of position, yeah, I think they'll be a lot happier with their position in the table. Maidenhead United. I actually interviewed their star striker Danilo Orsi-Dodoma earlier on today, which you can go check out on the channel. He's had a fantastic season. Currently fourth in the top scorers list with 16 goals, linked with a few Football League clubs such as Burton Albion and Bradford City. But I think away from Orsi-Dodoma, it's been a pretty fantastic season for Maidenhead.
I think so. I mean, you offered them 12th. They're a 12th right now. You offered them around that position at the start of the campaign. They probably have said not so bad, really. Of course, again, not relying on one player, but the one player's influenced the team. I think that when you've got that player who scores goals up top, it influences the team around you to get the ball to them, and it makes players around you play a little bit better as well. And I mean, like you say about Boreham Wood, if it wasn't for Kabongo, sorry, they pronounced his name wrong then, but yeah, I always get his name wrong. Then they might be a bit lower in the table. I think Maidenhead will look at 12th and they'll be satisfied with that overall. So yeah, I think that for Maidenhead, you're probably going to have to go with I'd probably say an A- as well, really. But yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I think it's been impressive. I think that, again, you offered them 12th, they're definitely taking it.
Yeah, and to be fair to Maidenhead, I think at the start of the season, in my predictions, I predicted them to get relegated down to the National League South. So full credit to Alan Devonshire. He's been at the club since 2015. He's built them up from this little unknown club to fighting comfortably mid-table, potentially even an outside shot for the playoffs. And the squad he's built is absolutely fantastic to say the position they're in. I mean, bringing back Sam Barrett from Southend United at the start of the season was just a stroke of masterclass because he's had an excellent season playing on the wing. But I'd have to agree with you, and I believe you said A-.
A-, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think they're well deserving of that. And if they could next season maybe build on that, that's still a fantastic achievement. But moving closer down towards the relegation zone, then a club that was newly promoted to the National League this season, Weymouth. They've had a fairly decent start to the season. I'm pretty sure their management team would have taken this position come the start of the season, I guess. But Weymouth in 18th place, I mean, they've adapted to life in the National League, I guess, but perhaps next season is the cause for concern?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, no relegation, obviously. To be fair to Weymouth, when no relegation was confirmed, they could have probably, eased off a little bit and said, okay, nothing to really fight for now. They've done okay, 10 wins, 20 defeats. Not the best, but I mean, they're a newly promoted team. So if you offered that a newly promoted team, when they first came up last season, I think they'd certainly have taken it. So yeah, I think that you look at it overall, 18th, they're probably quite satisfied with it, and next season is going to be the challenge. They'll either push up the table, or I think they could maybe be in the relegation battle that little bit more. So season as a whole, I'm going to go with a B.
Yeah, I'll probably go for a C. I think they've had a good season, surviving even though there is no relegation, rather comfortably, I guess, towards the end. For full credit to Brian Stock and the Weymouth team, because they've had a season to be proud of. It's the first time ever, I believe, in the National League. But another team who was promoted last season has had a similar season to Weymouth. However, they have massively dropped off. I didn't actually know they were that far in the table, down the table, sorry. But Altrincham obviously had a really good start. I think at one point they were as high as fourth, linked with some great players, and even managed to tie down Phil Parkinson to a professional contract with the club earlier in the season, which obviously provides great progress for him personally. But Altrincham 17th, I personally, if I was an Altrincham fan, would be disappointed with that just for how good of a season they started off having. But I'd probably go for a C overall. I'm pretty sure the start of the season would have taken a position, but towards the end, they just massively dropped off.
I'd probably go with I'd probably say a C-. I'd probably say I haven't been a little bit picky with that one. Yeah, disappointing season overall for them. 17th, I mean, again, some clubs I think have been the victim of, there's nothing to really fight for bar promotion this season, that they've kind of, I'm not saying Altrincham have done that obviously on purpose, but they've kind of been one of the victims of that in the league, I think, where, it's been announced and they have really much kind of slid down the table as the season's gone on. I think they'll be disappointed overall, the Altrincham, really. I mean, bearing in mind, teams around them, a lot of them have games in hand. They've played 38 games, one of the only teams to have played 38 games as well. So they'll be disappointed they can end the season even lower than what they currently are, and they won't be happy with that. No, disappointing.
No, and I think the fact that they haven't won a game since March 27th kind of says it all about that club right now. Things perhaps going wrong behind the scenes, I guess, so maybe there's some sort of disruption in changing rooms, but hopefully Altrincham can turn it around and start building towards next season. But on a much more positive note, I think we'll jump right at the table to Stockport County. in third position. They've obviously had a fantastic season. I think a lot of people really did expect this of Stockport. But to be fair to them, a club who was in the National League North just a few years ago, yeah, here they are battling for the Football League.
Fantastic. I think Stockport will be a great addition to League Two. I mean, I think Hartlepool will do it, but I think if there's a team I'd probably choose I want to, it's probably Stockport. I think there'll be a breath of fresh air, as I've said, and they've had a very good season. Probably going to have to give them an a straight A, really. I think they've been very good. They're a fresh team, Stockport. They know there's been a bit of a freshness about them this year to previous years, I've found. And yeah, I must say, I've been impressed with what I've seen. So fair play to them. Yeah,
and I think, like you said, they'd be a great acquisition to the Football League. They've got a fantastic stadium. They've got an already very capable squad. And as you can see, they've got their manager, Simon Rusk, has done a fantastic job since coming in early on in the season. But even the likes of John Rooney, Alex Reid, and Richie Bennett, even Paddy Madden, who was playing with Fleetwood earlier in the season, they have built such a strong squad, which is by far better than the status of non-league, I guess you could say. But for now, I guess, even though right now they're not favoured for the title, it wouldn't surprise me if Stockport did sneak in, especially with some of their recent results with 9 goals scored in the last 3 games and no goals conceded. It's looking good.
They've actually lost 7 games, which I believe is the joint fewest along with Sutton. Yeah. And one of Sutton's defeats was the other day, bearing in mind. But I don't know, like you say, I fancy Stockport to make a bit of a late push for that title. I mentioned about the playoffs. You know, they're only actually 5 points off the title. So 4 games to go. You never really know with that one. But no, they've had a great season, Stockport. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. Fantastic stadium. I think there's a lot of good things going on there right now. And even if they don't get promoted, I think they can take some momentum into next season.
Yeah, I just noticed Stockport as well. They have one of the best defences in the league. They've kept 7 clean sheets in the last 8 games. That is an incredible record. I think Rusk, the work he's doing with those defenders on the training ground, that's clearly paying off. But we'll move on then to another team sort of outside shot of the playoffs, I guess. I suppose they are only literally 1 point off, but Eastleigh in 10th position, maybe having a bit of an outside shot compared to Chesterfield and Notts County just due to goal difference. But again, for Eastleigh, would you really have expected them to be in that position at the start of the season?
I think that they've done quite well, Eastleigh, really. I think they've done okay. I mean, I wouldn't say they've done anything outrageous, but they're in with a shot, to be fair to them, and that's, you know, all that matters at this stage of the season. And I think they've made a pretty good fight of it. If I'm going to grade their season, I'll probably go with a solid B. I think that they've done okay. I don't think they've done anything, you know, good or bad, really. It's been quite a solid so far, but that can very much change in the next couple of weeks. Yeah,
and fair play to Eastleigh. They've always been around the playoff picture in recent seasons, but they've even got a defender here called Joe Tomlinson who's managed to get 9 goals this season from left back, which is just a crazy record. But, you know, if you're an Eastleigh fan, you have reason to be ambitious heading into the playoffs, having beaten Notts County 2-0 and Sutton United 1-0 in your previous 2 games. Maybe there's an outside shot there, but I think I'd go for a B for Eastleigh. You know, being around playoffs in recent years, just outside this year, I think that's not necessarily progress, but good for the club that they are. But we'll sort of move down the table a little bit, again down to 15th place where Aldershot Town currently sit in. Again, a former Football League club just dropping off massively in the National League, haven't really adapted yet, despite being in the league for a number of seasons now. Is it time Aldershot just go for a complete rebuild?
I think so, yeah. I mean, 15th place, start of the season would have been very underwhelming, and that's what it's been. I think the thing is, teams drop down from the Football League. The National League and League Two, for me, there's not a lot of quality between the two of them. And I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, I used Barrow as a good example, who've gone up to League Two, had 3 managers, had a bit of a torrid season. If that happened in League Two to League One, they'd never have survived. With all due respect to them, I don't think they'd ever have survived. But I mean, it's very hard to adapt to the National League. It's a lot harder than what people give it credit for. And I think Aldershot have found that out. Overall, their record this season, you know, 14 wins, 6 draws, 17 defeats. Not the best, really. Again, not a team who doesn't draw many. If I'm going to give them a grade, I'm probably going to have to go with a D.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go with a D as well, to be fair. They've not had the season they'd hoped for. You know, they had playoff ambitions at the start and they've just not ever really lived up to the hype. I mean, they had built a fantastic squad with the likes of Josh Reese in there, Ross McCormack signed at the start of the season, along with Ricky Miller, who I think was 4 or 3 years ago now. No, 4 years ago. Scored 40-plus goals in the National League, so he's clearly got what it takes. But Aldershot, just not the season that they would have wanted this year.
I will add, though, sorry, that I watched Aldershot play Dagenham early in the season. They were fantastic in that game. So the one game I did watch them, they were absolutely brilliant. I did a match report on it on Dagenham's website, and Aldershot were fantastic. So I really thought after that they could kick on, but unfortunately it's not happened for them.
And do you know what? That's a perfect opportunity to leap onto Dagenham and Redbridge then. So we'll move to 11th place Dagenham, who obviously, I'm not too sure how they would have felt about the season because they've sort of been near enough the relegation picture in recent years, but obviously another Football League club a club who just had never really looked the part, I guess, for making an immediate return. But again, Dagenham Bridge, should they be playing at a higher level?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone should be. I think you've got to be there on merit at the end of the day. I've watched them this season, Dagenham. I think the way they play has really halted them. I think that the style of football hasn't always been the best to the fans. I've done a lot of reports on them early on in the season when I was working for them. They're a good club, Dagenham. I think that they want to be higher than what they are. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. And this season, I think they have improved recently, but their season overall, for what was expected, I'm going to have to give them a C, because I think that they haven't hit the heights that I think many people thought they would. But yeah, it's just been one of them seasons, really, not quite clicked. But next season could be a lot more promise for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to be fair to Dagenham, the main problem was the amount of players that they've got. They overload positions. I think they've got over 8 players who could potentially play midfield for them for this season. But Darren McMahon's a fantastic manager. We've seen him do it recently with Ebbsfleet, the position he took them to before he left, and then everything went to pot from there, I guess, for them. If I'm a Dagenham fan or a Dagenham player, I completely trust him to turn that club around, and I'm probably going to have to give them a C, because not necessarily a great year, but not necessarily a bad year either in their current position. But moving on then, we'll sort of stick around the same position as Dagenham, and we'll go down to Yeovil Town in 16th position. I didn't realise that wasn't that close, but still, Yeovil Town, another team, potentially like Barnet, I guess you could say, or even an older shot of Dagenham, who haven't had the season that they would have been hoping for.
Yeah, I think another team who perhaps have been a little bit the victim of the announcement of no relegation. Been underwhelming for Yeovil, though. Yeah, like you say, I mean, obviously, I think they were a Football League club not so long ago as well. So you look at it like that, been disappointing. 48 points for the season. It's not great. I mean, 11 wins, 18 defeats, though, is the one that stands out in there. Very underwhelming. But I'm probably 16 defeats, sorry, not 18 defeats. Underwhelming. But I'm probably going to have to go with a C, really, again, or maybe even a D. I think it's been a bit of a disappointing season for them on the whole.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Just disappointing season, I'd probably go for a D. They have a really good team with them. The likes of Darren Sal was coaching with Stevenage, I think, just 2 years ago now. They've got some really good former Football League players in there. But for the Yeovil, it's just not been a very good season. Of course, they also had the passing of club captain Lee Collins, which obviously is just a massive disappointment, and may he rest in peace. But, a season Yeovil Town fans just want to get over with, I guess, now. But moving on then to a team how much higher up the table, we're going to be going to Chesterfield in 9th position. A club I personally have a vendetta with right now as a Bradford fan for taking Danny Rowe away from us. But nevertheless, fair play to Chesterfield, because they've completely turned their season around.
They have, yeah, fair play to them, as you say. I mean, Danny Rowe's a great signing for them as well in the National League, to their credit. Very good. I mean, 9th place, just outside the playoffs. It can be done this season, I think. And I'm probably going to say, give their season as a whole, I'm probably going to go with a B, just to balance it out a little bit. But yeah, if they get that playoff position and win, then that grade will certainly shoot up to an A+. But overall, though, I'd say, yeah, their season's been a bit mixed on the whole, but they'll take where they are right now.
Yeah, I'd probably go around a B as well, to be fair. I think under James Rowe, obviously he only joined mid-season from Gloucester. They're starting to build under him. They're putting the trust in him. They're giving him the money that they want him to do. And there were a lot of debate about Chesterfield, obviously, putting some of the fringe players in the club on furlough, but then going out and spending money on new players, which I guess on a whole doesn't look too great from the outside. But to be fair to them, it's worked, because he's completely turned that club around from a potential bottom sort of 8, I guess. Oh, well, not 8, that's too much. A bottom 5 club, really, to a playoff pushing team. And
they're actually in poor form right now, actually. I did actually remember they were actually in the playoffs, I believe, a few weeks ago. So they have slipped out of there. So I think we can keep the grade at a B. But I mean, if they don't get in the playoffs, looking at that, they might be a bit more disappointed on the whole. But didn't realise till I looked how poor form they're actually in right now, Chesterfield. It's quite a surprise. But overall, though, the season, I think it's been a mixed bag, really.
Yeah, and I think Chesterfield, their form sort of influenced by the injury of Akwasi Asante up top. He, I believe, pulled his ACL, not pulled it, he did something to his ACL, so he's out for the rest of the season and out for the next 8 months, which obviously that's an injury no player wants to go through. And it's massively affecting him, because he was a big part of the way they played. So disappointing, but Chesterfield, if they can get to the playoffs, like you said, definitely will push on to an A. But for the time being, probably a solid B for how they managed to turn around this year. But moving all the way back down to the table, we're going to go to Kings Lynn Town. Technically second bottom, just above Derby. Barnet, I don't know where I've got Derby from. And a team who, again, they've been massively affected by COVID, the way that it stopped them from buying players, I guess, that they need to compete at that level. I mean, I did an interview with the chairman a few months back, Stephen Cleave, and he was saying how he doesn't know how the National League can expect Kings Lynn to keep playing as a club when they literally can't afford to. So full credit to him, because they've managed to just about scrape the money to finish off this season and see where they're at then. So we don't know if financial difficulties are going to potentially prevent Kings Lynn going forward. But in all fairness, the season for them, which is probably forgettable because they would have been relegated.
Yeah, forgettable season on the whole. 7 wins all season, 22 defeats. I mean, like you said, they've been badly affected by COVID, so I don't want to say too much bad about them. But you got to go like Barnet. I think you got to go for an F really, or maybe an E, just to be a bit more fair. But they've got to be down there with Barnet. It's been a poor season, but again, circumstances and everything, it's not been easy.
Yeah, I probably agree on an E. Sorry, just for the fact that they've had some key players leave, like I've got his name. Marriott's gone to Eastleigh in the league, so a bit difficult. Obviously, the financial difficulties. I do think Barnet should have done better than they did, but Kings Lynn for me just a terrible season, unfortunately. And just above them in 20th place was Woking, who, again, another team who recently promoted from the National League South, and they've come up and not really threatened anyone, but recently gave the new managers a 3-year contract, which is perplexing to me.
I think that, maybe argue a little bit of transition going on there, though. I think, obviously, yes, they're struggling this season. Again, I don't want to keep bringing up the no relegation thing, probably is having a factor on a lot of this as well with the motivation. But, I mean, Woking are never going to get into the playoffs, I guess, so they're kind of thinking we're not going to go down, which the season's petering out. But again, 8 wins all season, 21 losses. I'd probably go with an E for them as well. I don't think I'd go as harsh as an F. It's not been a great season. It shows faith in the manager 3 years, but that could also very much backfire. If they start next season poorly and they're battling relegation, that could really backfire on them.
Yeah, and I was surprised by Walking's position, to be fair, because they've got some really well-known players. Even Matt Jarvis, who was playing with West Ham and Norwich not too long ago now, former England international. Dave Tarpey was scoring, 50-plus goals in National League South with Maidenhead not too long ago. They've got a very decent squad, have Woking. But for me, the manager was the problem this season, which is why I find it so confusing that they've given him a new contract. And judging from some of their fans' reactions to the new contract as well, they agree with that. He doesn't really look the part of their club, the sort of playing style he wants to put into these players, the way he wants to get Woking playing. It doesn't really work with the style of players he's got. So maybe you back Alan Dawson into a new season, let him bring his own players in, even though he has been there for a few years now. Maybe just a massive rebuild job, I guess, needed at Woking. But we'll shoot right up on the table now. I'm not too sure how many teams have actually got left because we tried to do this into a bit of a different order. But we'll go into a team who have had a bit of celebrity starlight pushed onto them this season, obviously. 6th place Wrexham, currently well involved in the playoff battle. And to be fair to them, if they do get promoted, it's going to be fantastic news, not just for the club financially, but in terms of League Two, I guess, because you're getting Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney in the league.
Yeah, definitely. Wrexham, again, really good chance of winning the playoffs for me. Like I say, financially, if they can win the playoffs, fantastic news as well. Their season as a whole, I'm probably going to go with an A, to be fair. I think they've been very good. And yeah, I mean, they're looking good. They are in a bit of threat, though. They're in 6th place, but they're 1 point above 8th place, Notts County. So they've got to be careful. Again, if they didn't make the playoffs, that grade would probably drop a little bit. But overall, I think Wrexham have done okay this season. I think they've had a season that they can be quite proud of. And again, their form recently has been quite good as well. So, I think they've done quite well, really.
I think the only thing really punishing Wrexham right now is they don't have a key striker in that sense. Obviously, they have Kwame Thomas and Dior Anderson. I'm pretty sure they recently signed a new striker. I've completely forgotten his name. But Wrexham, for me, they don't have that key striker, which every club sort of needs to push on and maybe get that automatic promotion, which obviously Torquay and Sutton and even Hartlepool or Stockport are going for right now. And that's really punished them because whilst, they have a fantastic squad, they've got a great manager as well in the form of Dean Keys. It's just they're missing that one key player, which for me could have been the difference between a playoff position or the title, I guess. But moving on from Wrexham, sorry, I forgot to grade them. Probably give them a B. Just for how
I'd probably give them that. Yeah, I'd probably go with that as well, really. And then I'll give them an A, didn't I? So I think, but again, that grade could certainly change. Yeah,
and jumping right back down the table again, the last team down there. But in 19th place, Wealdstone, another team promoted alongside the likes of Weymouth, Altrincham, Kingsley. And to be fair, if you look at those 4 teams, they're all sort of around each other at the bottom of the table. And it just shows how getting promoted, and obviously the financial side of it, hasn't really supported them. But Wealdstone, a team with another year just to forget, I guess, because technically they would have been relegated.
Yeah. Yes, forgettable season, as you say, really. I think that, they'll agree with that, to be honest. 19th place, 22 losses throughout the season, the joint second most. I'd probably go with a D. I'd go as harsh as an E or an F, but no, they've not had a good season at all, really. And one they want to move on from and just forget about.
Yeah, and I think Wilton, I watched them earlier in the season when they lost 4-1 to Wrexham. For me, they just don't look like there's too much chemistry in that dressing room in that sense. They're not really communicating one another and working as a squad. And that's going to punish a team in the league as competitive as the National League. So for me, I'm going to go probably with an E, another year to forget. Maybe the rebuild, go again in the National League next season, and hopefully we can start pushing more towards mid-table. But I believe we're on to the last... No, we're not on to the last team. We're on the last two teams. And on the last three teams, sorry. Completely. We have just done this in a random order, so I've lost it completely. But we'll go to 8th place, Notts County. Again, another team, a bit of a giant in this league. Probably shouldn't be in this league if you look at just general status of the club. 8th position, not really good enough.
I mean, I'd completely agree. I've got quite a bit to say about them as well. I have a lot of respect for Notts County, and I'm not far from Nottingham either. So, where I used to live. So they're a big club. I mean, obviously they're right next to Nottingham Forest, literally down the road. And like you say, I mean, they came in with this money a few years ago. The plan was to get them up to the top as soon as possible. It completely backfired, and now they're in the National League and struggling. I think when they got relegated, I was one of the fans who thought, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll go up in the National League. But again, it's not that easy. And they found that out. But 8th place, they've sacked a manager this season as well. Very disappointing. I'm probably going to go for a C. I think a C minus, I'd probably say. But I mean, obviously, if they win the playoffs and that all changes and they've had, it's successful, they've gone up. But overall, if you said 8th at the start of the season, I think they'd have been very disappointed with that.
Yeah, I think the main problem of the season has been the whole management team and the sort of transition that they're going through. Obviously, Ian Birchnell coming into a fantastic appointment because he was wanted by the likes of AFC Wimbledon when they were looking for a manager. But obviously, recently as well, Birchnell's assistant manager has been sacked by the club for a racist remark towards winger Enzio Boldwine, which he don't stand for, especially when we just had the boycott weekend towards abuse. So fair play to Notts County for getting him straight out. But in terms of the actual season, for me, it's been terrible because Notts County should be a team at the top of the table for me. They've got the best players, they've got the best budget, they've got a fantastic manager now, even though there's not really too much you could have done about it. Yet here they are currently sitting outside the playoffs. That could obviously change in a weekend, really. So for that, I'm gonna have to go for a D, to be honest, because if you're a Notts County fan, like you said before, and you told them you finished 8th, you'd be massively disappointed. But
massively onto the top, underwhelming, massively underwhelming.
Yeah, and onto the top two now. I didn't even mean to leave these two to the last two, but here we are. We'll sort of just start for Sutton United then, because they are technically 4 points behind with a game in hand on Torquay. So Sutton, a club which I have to admit I didn't really expect to be up there.
Yeah, they've done very, very well, Sutton. I mean, they're always that sort of team. I think they always threaten to get there, but they don't necessarily always do it. Second place, I mean, obviously if they do finish second, will they win the playoffs? When you look at the table, they should be the favourites. It's going to be tough. I think Sutton are, they're a good team. They've had a very good season. They are going through a bit of a tough patch right now. They're Sutton. They lost to Notts County in controversial fashion the other day. A dramatic fashion, I should say, as well. But overall, their season, I'm going to go with an A because it has been a very good season and they are right up there. So I'm going to go with an A. It's just, if they don't get promoted, though, I do really think that can cost them going into next season. I think they might struggle a bit more then. So this might be their shot at getting up to League Two. Yeah,
and of course, all the financial ramifications that are coming that, if they do get promoted, they'll have to move out of their 3G pitch and move to a grass location like Harrogate did this season. But I think the key for Sutton United this year has probably been their defence. They've not really got a striker who's pulled away from the rest and had a crazy goal-scoring season, yet they've lost the joint least amount of games this season along with Stockport. And, I mean, they've got the second most clean sheets in the league as well with Dean Bouzanis in goal, behind Stockport's keeper, to be fair to him. But even so, right now, Sutton United, if you were told them at the start of the season and be in this position, they'd be delighted. And while I do think that Torquay could be a team now to go on and win the league, all depends on this game in hand which Sutton have, which is against Weymouth, so that could be a massive game. Just coming up against a team who are currently not threatened by relegation, which is in a not very good position. But we'll move on then to, an A for Sutton. I keep forgetting to do that, just great.
Yeah, I'll go with an A as well.
But moving on to first position then, of course, right now is Torquay United, a club who, to be fair to them, have had a bit of a really strange few years, going from the Football League, being relegated. A lot of their fans want an immediate promotion, but instead seeing them get relegation down to the National League South, having to rebuild and come up all the way come all the way back under Gary Johnson, who's obviously a fantastic manager. It's been a bit of a strange year for Torquay because I haven't really felt like they've felt like champions at any point.
It's been a weird one. Every time I've watched Torquay this season, they seem to have played poor. I'm like their jinx. Every time I've watched them, I've thought, how are these top of the league or how are these up there? But fair play to them though. They have had a good season and fair play. I mean, they're up there, so I've got to give them an A. I think that when you look where they are, top of the league, they were in National League South just 2 years ago. It's been a rebuild. If they get back up to the Football League, then fair play to them. But they've done well. I mean, it's like you say, it's been a weird season, and I don't think they've dominated the league. As in, they're top of the league, and it's been a they've easily won it. It's going to be a ride, really, but that might make it more satisfying for them. And yeah, full credit to them. I mean, they're up there, and yeah, fair play.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people weren't really expecting this of Torquay going into the season because, like Sutton, haven't necessarily got an out-and-out striker who's just flourishing, getting the goals this year, but fair play to them because the position they're in, they completely deserve how they're getting along right now. And I think going into next season, if they were to be promoted, I wouldn't surprise me if they went straight for another playoff push just for how big of a squad they are. But currently unbeaten 9, it's a great record to have. And I'm sure heading into the title race, that's the perfect record that they want to have. But we'll move away then from obviously our review of every single team. We'll talk about a few of the teams the two teams which have been relegated from League Two this season coming down to the National League. If you want to hear more about our thoughts on League Two, a bit of a plug here, you can go check out the Fourth tier talk, that's it. We should start from United and Grimsby Town come down. We'll first of all talk about Grimsby, Sam. What are your thoughts on their relegation? How do you think they'll do in the National League?
Surprised when they started the season with Ian Holloway. Yes, Ian Holloway's not the manager he was 10 years ago when he was playing Premier League football with Blackpool, but he's a good manager for League Two. Obviously, he left just before Christmas, and from then it's been a huge downward spiral. On the whole, I think Grimsby are a decent team. I think that they could win it, but I think they'll get playoffs perhaps next season. It's hard to predict right now what's going to happen, but I really think it could be a difficult season for them. If they're not careful, they shouldn't underestimate the league, but Grimsby have been there many times before in the National League, so they're no strangers to it. So I think they'll be well equipped, and out of the two teams coming down, I think they'll do better. Yeah,
I actually agree with that. I think Southend right now financially just not in a great position, but Grimsby coming down, last time they got out of this league, it was for the playoffs. Maybe if you're predicting they'll finish playoffs, we could definitely see that happening again. But for me, Grimsby, I don't actually believe they need to do too much rebuilding. I don't think Paul Hurst is the man to take them forward, I'll be honest about that. And obviously there was a lot of arguments in the changing room to the whole red card that happened at Bradford between Moraes and obviously Stefan Payne. But for me, I don't actually think they've got the worst squad in the world. I think they've definitely got a squad that was capable of playing at League Two. So if they can keep on to some of the key assets, I'm sure that they'll be able to rebuild under them next season. Right now, with the summers approaching, there'll be a lot of National League clubs announcing their retained and release list. Do Grimsby look at them players and maybe see they've got National League experience? Let's bring them in, or do they look at the League Two clubs and try convince one or two, or how many players they get to drop down a league? It's a very strange time when you get relegated from League Two to National League because you don't know what type of players to expect. Do you expect the sort of non-league players coming that perhaps Torquay got a few years ago and they got relegated with those players, or do you maybe bite the bullet and go for some high division players? But the other team getting relegated, and one who's currently in the midst of a takeover, supposedly, Southend United also wanted to be bought by Stan Collymore.
It could be horrible for Southend next season. I mean, when they came down from League Two, I never thought they'd go down to from League One. Sorry, I never thought they'd go down in League Two. I actually had them to get the playoffs and go straight back up. No, not and get into the playoffs at least and not go up, but at least get there. It's been horrible for them. All season, they've looked like a team who were going down, bar a little bit of a flurry they had over the winter when I think they won a few home games in a row. It's been a bit of a nightmare for them. And then unless they get this takeover deal right, I don't think they'll do a triple dip. But I do think they'll finish quite low down if they're not careful, though. But I don't think it's going to be easy for them. And it's quite sad to say that, really. It's never nice to see a club go through what they have done, but it's not looking good right now.
No, and to be fair, it surprised me that they went down. Like you mentioned with your predictions, I didn't really think they'd be in that position, but they remind me a lot of Notts County in the fact that this is the first time they're dropping out the Football League in 101 years. Notts County, one of the founding members, I believe, of the actual Football League. So with Southend going down, what do they do from here? Do you think they need new players or a new manager? I mean, they've only just brought Phil Brown in, but do you think he could be the man to take them out of the league?
I think he could be. I mean, I think he's been in charge before. If I'm right, Phil Brown. I think I've always been against going back to managers who used to be there. It's just a step backwards. I don't want to give it this bad comparison. It's like going back to an ex-girlfriend when it didn't work out before, and you're just going back to, to doing it again. It just seems a bit weird, and I think that's not what you should do. I mean, new managers never easy, but in my opinion, if Phil Brown doesn't take this team quite high in the table, he'll probably be sacked quite early in the season anyway. Yeah. I'm probably going to say that he's not the right man, but I don't know for sure. He might get them out of the league, but the question then will be, how do they cope in League Two?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's all we have time for this week. So I'm going to bring an end to this week's episode of the Benchwarmers Podcast. Let's bring my guest for this week, Sam. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, let's hope for a good end to the season in the National League. Very interesting playoffs ahead. And I think a very interesting season next season when clubs won't be as badly affected. And hopefully there will be a full-on season when there's promotion, relegation, and the National League and North and South get to finish well. Hopefully it doesn't get too affected by the pandemic even more. It's been a shame this season. I think that the league, everyone's looked at the league and, some teams have had 5-6 games in hand and it's all been a bit crazy. But no, fair play to all the supporters of the National League teams as well. Full credit for sticking by it and just going as normal, because it'd be driving me insane if I supported a National League team. Yeah. But no, full credit though. And yeah, let's hope for a good end to the season.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be a Dover fan right now. I'm not having played in months because the chairman refuses to.
Yeah,
but yeah, and we'll see you all next week.
Yep.